The day.
Last question comes from Manny P, who writes, "Hey guys, love the show. My question is about directors. When a movie is bad, not just unsuccessful, but actually bad, how much of that is the director's fault? If he or she has a bad script, doesn't a director have some wiggle room to change things? Can you guys clear up the air, please? And keep up the great show."
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, you know, I've said for a long time, there's a pecking order. A lot of people who aren't involved in the film industry, whatever, they think, oh, you know, Robert De Niro's in that. That means it's going to be great. And, you know, the pecking order, I think, for who is really most responsible for a movie being great or being bad goes director, writer, studio, actors. And they go in that order. The director is the buck stops here person. They are the ones ultimately sitting in the chair to make it go. Now, a lot of people will then, you know, say, well, you know, if the script is bad, you know, it's like this. I remember listening to James Cameron talk once about directing in regards to like the Learning Channel home improvement shows. And it was a great analogy because this is what James Cameron said. Because somebody asked about, you know, working with a bad script or working with a difficult studio or whatever. He said this, you know, it's easy to be a contractor who's given a $10 million budget to go and fix up somebody's kitchen. That's easy. He goes, but wait, what's really tough is when you see these shows where these contractors get like, here's $2,000 to go and completely renovate somebody's kitchen. And you see that they have the skill at the end of the show. They do the big reveal and the kitchen looks amazing. You can't believe it. He said, that's the responsibility of the director. You're responsible to take what you're given, whether it's an Academy Award level script with an unlimited budget, whatever, and make something great, or whether it's a mediocre script with some interference from the studio and you're under budgeted. It's still in your hands to go and make the best possible film you can. Now, that doesn't mean it's always the director's fault, if like completely the director's fault if a movie's bad. Doesn't mean the director should always just get all the credit if a movie's great. But when it comes down to it, the director is the man or woman sitting in that chair that has to make those decisions with whatever opportunities and hindrances that come along with that particular film. They're the ones who have to make it work. You know, we often have this debate a lot of times. I'll say X-Men or Spider-Man 3 was just a terrible film. And, you know, Raimi kind of crapped the bed on that one. Raimi's a great director. I love Sam. I think his Oz movie, by the way, shame on you folks who diss his Oz movie. I love his Oz movie. Anyway. Yeah, it's so good. Anyway. But also, yeah, I think he crapped the bed on that one, and that's okay. Everybody has a bad day at the office. Even Spielberg had the odd clunker or two. But people will say, no, John, it was the studio's fault because the studio made him put Venom in it. I'll go, okay, the studio made him put Venom in it. Then he should have taken that and made a great movie with Venom. Mm-hmm. Why didn't he take that direction he got and make a great movie with Venom? Because, you know, if the Avengers sucked, everybody could have come back and said, well, you know, it was the studio that made Joss Whedon put Black Widow in. Because Joss Whedon didn't put Black Widow in his script. He had Wasp. He wanted Wasp in Avengers. And the studio said, nope, not this time. Do this. So what did Joss Whedon do? Did he cry about it? Nope. And now they did Sam Raimi, by the way. But did he cry about it and say, no, they're making me take out my character? No, he said, okay, that's what I'm being handed. I'm going to make the best movie I can with what I'm handed. And he made The Avengers, what I call the #1 comic book film of all time. Amy Rose calls #2. So, I mean, ultimately, it really is the main responsibility of the director. Of course, there are other factors that come into play. Of course, you have to consider the script. Of course, you have to consider the producers. Of course, you have to consider the budget. Of course, you have to consider the source material. Absolutely. But the biggest of all that is the director. That's just the way I see it. Amy Rose?
Yeah, I mean, they are the man or woman at the helm, literally steering this picture for better, for worse, to where it ends up. And I definitely think, you know, one of the biggest key factors is how large of a pull and name they are. If they're an up-and-coming director, it might be in their contract that the studio has the final say or the cut or this or that. But if they're a name like Spielberg or Nolan or all of these who, you know, their creative control is their art, is their vision. It's so important to them. And they have now built an empire of their own where they can have more freedom. Then that becomes a little different a story. And, you know, as I mentioned in Man of Steel, I thought Snyder did a visually beautiful job. I thought the action sequences were awesome. I thought all of that was great. And as I mentioned, my issues were with the script, with some of the dialogue, with some of the decisions of that. And, you know, it really depends behind behind the scenes, like how collaborative of an environment it really is, and like what is deemed in the contract. But, you know, the director is, as you mentioned, not the end all be all. I mean, there's a lot going on, but they are kind of shaping the overall vision. So depending on what your issue was, whether it be with the writing or the direction or this, you can kind of pinpoint maybe where your direct issue, where it stemmed from, but it is all the components as a whole. And, you know, the director's name is usually the largest one on the film, so they get most of the praise. They also get most of the heat if it goes the opposite way. So I definitely think it depends on how large it is, what's written in the contract, how large the name is anyway, and what kind of property it is. I mean, if it's going to be, you know, a Mark Millar who's overseeing the DC universe with this, you know, like with Fox, with all their Marvel properties that they own, not DC. You know, it all depends on who's the godfather on that and all the other components if it's really a collaboration. But yes, in the end, it's the director's vision, and they receive most of the praise if it's a great movie, so I guess the heat also falls on them as well. But there's a lot more than meets the eye, and a lot of things we're never going to know about what was written into the contract and this and that and who has final say. But yes, the director is usually the strongest hold.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news, and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.